All right, so let's talk about Kingsville. Kingsville sales jumped 57% in July. Dollar volume was up over 60%. And if you just saw those two numbers, you'd probably think prices are taking off here. Champagne, confetti, the whole thing. But they're not. And honestly, the gap between sales are surging and prices are basically flat is exactly why I want to unpack today. Because it's the kind of thing that gets misread constantly. And I don't want you making a decision off of the headline version of this story. I'm Linda Hakr with Jump Realty, and Kingsville is one of the areas I work in very closely. I'm out here all the time, so this one's a bit personal for me as well. All right, so let's get into what's actually going on this month. All right, so we had 22 homes sold in Kingsville in July of 2026. A year ago, it was 14. That's the 57% jump. New listings actually dropped at the same time from 46 down to 34, and active listings fell as well. So think about what that actually means. More sales off a smaller and smaller pool of homes. That's a real tightening. That's not nothing, and honestly, it's the kind of a lot happening for one small lakeside town in 1 month. So I've been trying to figure out exactly why, and I don't think there's one clean answer. It's more likely a few things landing all at once. Kingsville's had a steady pull of relocators and retirees for a while now. People chasing the waterfront, the wineries, the slower pace, and a lot of them have been sitting on the sidelines the same way buyers across the whole county have, waiting on rates, waiting for the right listing, waiting for something to feel like the right moment. When a town like this has a smaller pool of active listings to begin with, it doesn't take a massive shift in buyer behavior to produce a big percentage swing. 14 sales to 24 sales sounds dramatic as a percentage, and it is, but we're still talking about a small number of transactions in absolute terms. That's worth holding on to as we go through the rest of this. So it's the same thing I always tell people about small town numbers. In a market with hundreds of sales a month, one strange month gets averaged out. In a market with 22, one strange month is the whole story until you zoom out. I'll also say, I think part of what's happening is a bit of the pent-up demand finally releasing. When you've got buyers who've been circling this town for a year, sometimes maybe even 2 years, watching listings coming and going without pulling the trigger, eventually some of them decide enough is enough. A slight better rate environment, a life event, a listing that finally checks the boxes they've been holding out for. Any one of those can be the thing that tips someone from still looking to made an offer. And when that happens across a handful of buyers in the same month, in a town this size, you get exactly the kind of percentage jump we're looking at here. It doesn't mean the floodgates are open. It just means a few patient people all decided to stop waiting around the same time. Now, here's the number that actually kind of surprised me. With sales up that much, you'd expect prices to be climbing fast as well, right? That's the instinct. But average price only moved up 2% to about $605,000. And median price, which is usually the better read on what a typical home is actually going for, actually went down about 6%. When sales volume jumps, that hardened price barely moves or even dips a little. It usually just means a wider range of homes changed hands that month, smaller places, bigger places, a mix, instead of a cluster around one price point. It's not that any one home suddenly got more valuable. Sorry to burst your bubble. I know prices are flat isn't as exciting a headline as prices are surging, but it's the only one that's actually going to serve you better if you're making a real decision about your home. Quick one for you before I keep going. I'm just wondering if you bought or sold in Kingsville this year. Did the price you get feel like it lined up with what you expected going in, or did it surprise you either way? just make sure you just drop a comment below. I generally love to know. All right, so let's talk about the benchmark index because this backs it up as well. Kingsville Composite Benchmark, which is the number that strips out that month-to-month noise in what happened to sell, is up less than 1% year over year. So the real headline here isn't prices are surging, it's a lot more homes are selling. I know that's a less exciting sentence, but it's the true. That's what's happening. And honestly, after doing this every month, I'd rather hand you the boring true sentence than the exciting misleading one. All right, one number that did move a lot though, and I think this one matters just as much as sales jump, the days on market. 28 and a half days this July, almost double last year's 14 and a half. So more homes are selling, sure, but it's taking a lot longer on average to get there, which honestly fits with what I'm describing. A broader range of homes at a broader range of price points, finding buyers instead of everything getting snapped up in the first week. We're not seeing that anymore. Not everyone's in a race anymore. Buyers are looking, they're comparing, sometimes walking through a place twice before actually deciding on anything. That's a healthier rhythm than what we saw a few years back, even if it doesn't feel as dramatic on paper. Honestly, as someone who's been showing homes here for years, I'll tell you, this rhythm, it's nicer to work in. When everything was moving in 5 days with 10 offers, buyers barely had time to actually picture themselves in a house before they had to decide. 28 days gives everybody room to bring a parent through for a second opinion, to measure for furniture, to actually sit with a decision instead of panic deciding in a bidding war. It's a slower, but slower isn't a bad word here. And look, year to date, it's actually a much steadier story than that 1 month might suggest. 90 sales this year versus 86 last year. That's a real small, sensible gap. Nothing close to 57%. So take July on its own with a bit of a grain of salt. One strong month doesn't rewrite the whole year, and I'd rather you see the full picture rather than just the headline number that's going to show up in a Facebook post. Somewhere, someone's going to have it. So does the year-to-date number change how you're reading July's headline? Let me know what you think. Drop it below. So what does this actually mean if you're thinking about making a move in Kingsville? All right, so if you're thinking about selling, yes, there are more active buyers circling than there were a year ago. That part's real, and it's genuinely a good sign, but don't assume that automatically means a bidding war on your specific home. Buyers here are being selective right now. They're not desperate. And with days on market nearly doubling, that patience is showing up on how they shop. Price it accurately from the start. Present it well, and let the extra buyer interest work in your favor instead of assuming it'll do all the work for you. I've seen sellers get this one wrong. They see sales up 57% somewhere and price like it's 2022 again. And then they're the ones sitting at 40 days wondering what happened. The buyers who are out there right now, they're informed. Let me tell you, a lot of them have been watching this market for months now, sometimes even longer, and they know the difference between a home price to the actual data and one price to a headline. They're doing the research. They're checking to see what people have, what the amenities, everything. If you overshoot it, even by a little, and you'll feel it in the showings, fewer people through the door in that critical first couple of weeks, which is exactly what a listing gets the most eyes on it. Undersell that window, and you're playing catch up for the rest of the listing. Okay, let's talk about buying. If you're thinking about buying, inventory is genuinely tighter than it's been in years. So if something checks your boxes, move with intent. Don't sit on a good one for 2 weeks, hoping a better one's going to show up, because in a market this size, it might not. That said, if you're fighting some runaway price increase here, that data just doesn't back that up right now. You can move fast without moving foolishly, and you've still got room to negotiate on condition, closing dates, and the things that actually matter to your day-to-day life once you're in the house. And if you're coming from out of town, which a lot of my Kingsville buyers are, don't just fall in love with the water view. Walk the neighborhood at a couple different times of day. Make sure you check what the drive into town actually feels like. Talk to me about what a specific street is like before you write an offer. The lifestyle sell is real here, but it's worth confirming for yourself before you commit. Are you watching Kingsville as a buyer, as a seller, or just keeping an eye on your own equity like a lot of people these days do? What do you think? Let me know in the comments. It generally shapes what I cover next month. And this is exactly why I don't love it when people just glance at a single stat and run with it. 57% sounds like a headline, but the story underneath it, smaller inventory, patient buyers, a flat benchmark, days on market nearly doubling, that's the version that actually tells you something useful about what's happening on the ground here. The whole reason I do the monthly breakdowns instead of just posting the top line numbers and calling it a day. If this was useful, make sure you hit the subscribe so you can catch next month's numbers too, and drop a comment below which Kingsville neighborhood you're keeping an eye on. And I'm happy to tell you exactly what I'm seeing there. If you want the fuller picture, go watch the full Windsor-Essex update next. The Leamington breakdown, which is actually moving in the opposite direction from Kingsville this month. Both are linked right down here on the screen.